Oh, there you go. Hey guys, welcome to the show. Tonight on the Dr. G show, we're hoping to have the genetics back for me, so we could go over that, but it's still not back. So we're gonna have next week where we talk about epigenetics and thought. So we're gonna have a special guest next time, Connie Paraska, who you guys might know from the Domes and was it Retreat to Joy and some of the other kind of things that she's put on over the last year. So that'll be pretty exciting because she has a really good perspective on this, and it'll be very interesting to kind of see where we go with that. So we're going to talk about thought and kind of perception, placebo, nocebo effect, and then epigenetics, how we rewire the brain or neuroplasticity. So then hopefully after that we'll have our genetics back in. So still, we're waiting on our genetics. For me, someone offered theirs, which was very nice. Thank you so much. But I want to kind of see what mine looks like, just in case it's crazy. So we'll see. It'll be interesting. Well, I'm glad to have you guys on the show. This is show, I think, 85 or something like that. Tonight we're going to talk about, so since the genetics aren't in, we've had a lot of requests for the same topic. And that topic is why dairy is the devil. It's the devil. El Diablo. Right? So we're going to take a little diversion and we're going to talk about dairy is the devil. I think Dr. Leatherman, Sarah down in Florida, she actually tagged me on a Facebook post, and I posted that on my Facebook. But it was a commercial for from a bunch of Olympic athletes for them talking about why they don't do dairy or that they've been dairy free. And what I like about that is these are high-end athletes. So it's kind of that no-meat athlete movement where you have these just ripped, huge, gigantic bodybuilders, boxers, Olympic athletes, and they're just a bunch of vegans. And what's interesting is if you look at like what those people eat, those people, right? It's crazy stuff like fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and berries and glooms and greens. And so, of course, how in the world do they ever get strong as a horse without eating a cow? Oh, yeah, the horse doesn't eat the cow. It eats salad all day, right? So does a rhino and a gorilla and all that, right? So my favorite cartoon is there's this little weasel that eats meat, and it's looking at this big, giant, huge gorilla, and it says, where do you get your protein from? Right? Because half the diet of a gorilla is fruit, the other half is vegetables, greens. So we don't have to have those. You can have them if you want. You can eat meat, don't eat meat, but eat healthy meat, just eat very little meat. Which, by the way, I found something interesting when I was going through my files, cleaning up my office, because yes, after a year, I decided to clean my office. And I found this, and it's from the Blue Zones. I think it's written the right way. And you know, what I do is that functional lifestyle medicine, and basically trying to figure out how to fix some of the most complicated cases, and how to help patients reverse all these conditions. And the simplest way that we do this is to figure out what's causing the problem and stop causing the problem. And that works for the vast majority of all complicated cases. And one of the things that really inspired me to do this type of practice was the 100-year lie, which basically said we didn't have these conditions, we did this certain thing, and then all of a sudden we had a disease and become epidemic, and then we maintain the epidemic because it's profitable. So we eat, drink, breathe, wear gasoline, basically, what that comes down to. But the other one that really I loved about the lifestyle medicine part was the idea of the Blue Zones, which were some of the healthiest, longest living populations on Earth. So Okinawa, Japan, and Sardinia, and Costa Rica, and Loma Linda, California. And what they did in the Blue Zones is they said, what are the common things that all these countries do that's unique, that allows them to live longer, healthier, happier lives? And so I love this picture, and I can never find this picture online. But if you look at it, it's the 7 things that all the healthiest, happiest, longest living populations have in common. They all speak different languages, they have different parts of the world, they have different religions, they eat different foods. But what they have in common is they all eat real, actual food, and they eat healthy food. They all do things like meditation and de-stressing. So yoga, mindfulness, those types of things. Even the little things like going for a walk and all that. Hey, good to see Tim and Gina. As we go through this, I'm going to have questions for you guys. So as we talk about dairy is the devil, feel free to, I want to hear your guys' thoughts about, Shamrock Shake. That's gasoline and estrogen. So, in a styrofoam estrogenic container. Hi, Rhonda. But as we go through this, if you guys have done dairy-free stuff, please post what you really, really like. Okay? So your favorite artificial cheese, not artificial cheeses, nut cheeses, nut yogurts, those kind of things. And then over here we have, they all have religion, so they're all different, but they all have faith. And the purpose of that is to say, hey, I can't handle this, you handle that. And just the ability to know what you can handle and what you can't handle allows you to de-stress, which we talk a lot about. Might sound familiar if you're a patient. And then wine consumption and green tea. So they either drink red wine or they drink green tea, or they do both. So if you think about the healthiest, happiest countries, that's typically what you think. So green tea, red wine. Not white wine and beer and Moscato, which are all sugar like soda. Or it's not black tea, which is oxidized tea, but green tea. These are life-sustaining things. And then get rest. So when we Americans work more, we exhaust more. But other countries, rest becomes a very important part of life. And then the social connection is really important. I think you probably heard me say this before, but that study, 90% of Europeans eat with people, and 90% of Americans eat alone now for lunch, usually in their car. So, what's the title at the top of the page? Interconnectivity of the power of 9. 9! Well, in German, that means 0. Oh, the number 9. Okay, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's not 9. The other two, okay, let me guess. The other two is exercise, so movement, purposeful movement, and then faith, de-stress. What's the last one? I might have to break out the book. Power of 9. So, that's kind of ridiculous, huh, Brianna? The interconnectivity of power 9, but they only list 7 things. Now, I'm used to the 9 thing. Oh, that's what the 9th thing is. The 9th thing is that they eat 80% of their food. So they eat, what that means is it's the 80-20 rule, which is eat till you're not hungry, but don't eat till you're full. So of those countries, they eat healthy foods, mostly greens, but then fruits and vegetables, and then they tend to eat only 80% of that. Oh, good. And Brianna posted that. Thank you. So, this is what I love. This is what really changed my style of practice, is that idea that it doesn't take gimmicks to get healthy and live longer and happier. It just takes making a lifestyle that is consistent with life and longevity. And it is just amazing how that simplicity of kind of lifestyle transformation gets rid of all these things that these patients have worried about or dealt with for years and years and years. And one of those things that we get rid of in the beginning typically is dairy. So, what did we say dairy is? Dairy is the devil. Is that backwards? All right, then. That's almost correct. All right, that's almost correct. It's like an 8th grade or 3rd grade devil. Okay, so One of the magazines when I used to teach at Tabor was they had these science news ones, which I really liked. And one of the benefits that I understood that may or may not be true is you could just take these magazines home if you wanted to. So I took one home. And this one was a scientists find a soup of suspects while probing milk's link to cancer. Latest studies focus on estrogens, androgens, and IGF-1. That's all backwards, so, you know. If you guys know me, I write upside down and backwards for patients. So it's hard for me to write normal after I get done at the end of the day. But we'll go through this. And one of the things, if you look at this, that I liked was the charts over to the side here. Sorry, I had that sniffle and stuff before, and then I got food poisoning. And so I was like throwing up the other night till like hours of just throwing up, which is gross, right? But it's a good thing because something in that 3-week-old kale that I should have thrown out, but I decided to use, wasn't good. So my throat's still a little hacky here. But you have these charts with all these estrogens on here, right? The red one's the really big concerning one. And you can see how sky high those are right there, right? So let's talk about this. Why is dairy the devil? And Harvard came out several years ago and they said that dairy is not a part of a healthy diet, which was amazing because everybody tells us dairy is what's going to make strong bones. Right, Bob? His jaw's broken. He can't talk. So strong bones and muscles, right? And vitamin D. So we have to drink milk. Well, unless you're a guy and you just got to get outside and work and do all that. But for women, you have to consume dairy, right? Because that makes a lot of sense. So Harvard then came out and said, actually, dairy is harmful to human health, which then was even scarier because that's not what I was told as a kid or what I learned in school or what nutritionists learned. Now, clinical nutritionists, we learn different, but then they came out and they said this really profound thing that the type of estrogen that's released when you touch thermal receipts at Walmart or Dillon's, those ones, you know, it used to be ink. It was like zzz, 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 like a printer. Now it's thermal receipts, and they're all like, they got that kind of texture to them, that coating on there. Well, that coating is bisphenol A, which is one of the most estrogenic of all the plasticizers, right? So Harvard said when a pregnant mom touches this estrogenic receipt at Walmart or Dillon's, there is enough estrogen leached in through that skin through dry hands that it can cause anal genital malformation of that developing fetus. So that's pretty scary. Then Harvard came out and said, as scary as plastics are, we are more scared of cow milk. So let's talk about why. Okay, we'll go back to this. So the Journal of Endocrinology back in 2009, they came out with this study, and what they said in the beginning was, we have always known dairy was directly tied to heart disease, cancer, and diabetes, but we didn't understand the mechanisms until now. And what they finally looked at was some basic hormones that are in there. Not the reverse bovine growth hormone that we put in, but these are naturally occurring, whether it's a goat or a rat or a cow, right? A horse milk. Or hippo milk, which is pink. Pink. That would be pretty dope, right? That's like that Twix? Kicks? What is that one? It has a bunny on it. Remember you put a little powder in your thing and mix it up? They had the pink one. Quick. I think it's Quick. Alright. Yeah, you tell me. I think it's Quick. KWIX or something. Sorry. Anyways, so Harvard came out and said that, and so the Journal of Endocrinology looked at the hormones, and what they looked at was estrogen, but in the form of estradiol. Yeah, there you go. Brianna's got it. And estradiol, which by the way, got my Olba menthol, old school. So they looked at estradiol, and the main one is E2. Now the interesting thing about animal estrogens, especially really big animals, is that they make a hell of a lot more estrogens than we make. So a cow makes 13 estrogens. Does anybody know how many estrogens a human makes? So as we talk, post that, okay? How many estrogens does a human make? And I'll let you know a cow makes 13. And I'll just give you a hint. Ours is a lot less. So, of those, the most potent of those is estradiol, or E2. So, when you look at the estrogen content of cow's milk versus kind of what we naturally produce, a human male produces, say, that much. So that's how much I produce, so I look like a dude, right? All duded out, look like a guy. Women make this much estrogen, or estradiol, which then makes them look like a girl when they're born, right? So they're a girl. And then when they go through puberty, women skyrockets this high, and that change right there is enough to make the breast grow, uterus grow, ovaries grow, and they become a woman. So, when you look at that estradiol change, it should be short-lived. It should get that little spike and then be done, and then once she's done with puberty, it should go right back down to where it was. Because we don't want breast tissue to grow, uterus tissue to grow, ovaries to keep growing, or else we get endometriosis and polycystic ovarian and fibroids and breast cancer and fibrocystic breasts and nodules and all these kind of things. We don't want them to keep going through puberty for the rest of their life. So, once they go through puberty, boom, estradiol goes back down. I don't see anybody with any guesses yet on the how many estrogens we make. Uh-oh, broke my tooth. Okay, so this is a boy, girl, puberty, not puberty. Cow estradiol is that high. And that's because it's a 1,200-pound mom breastfeeding that baby cow. So, cheese, cottage cheese, milk, ice cream, it's all breast milk. And Jody, you got it right. Brianna, you got it right. It's 3. Estrone and estril, which are weak estrogens, which should be dominant unless you're through puberty. And then estradiol, or E2, is the strong one that should only be dominant during puberty, and then it should be weak. So weak should be up here, strong should be down here, puberty, not puberty. So, the body doesn't care, and that's what Harvard was talking about, is that that's why it scares them, is it doesn't matter whether it comes from a cow, a goat, or a rat. That estrogen is bioidentical to humans, and it will cause estrogenic change or puberty for the rest of your life. So, there's a couple things too in there, is they said in the Journal of Dermatoendocrinology, which is a pretty good journal there, that it takes only tiny, or that they actually said it takes an amazingly small amount of estradiol to cause profound hormonal changes. So it didn't even take a little bit, it just took a little bit to cause a change, let alone this much. So, when we consume those dairies, we're going through the puberty, so we should expect those kind of hormonal changes. If you look at something like, so I'm so used to drawing this out for everybody, you know. So when you look at like autoimmune disease, 90% of all autoimmune disease are women, not men. And that goes back to the who's supposed to be drinking a bunch of milk question. And if you go even further back and you say, well, the Osteoporotic Society or whatever their name is, they were started by the Dairy Council. So that's why every solution to osteoporosis is drink more of our product that we sell, right? Seems a little biased if you think about that, right? But for guys, they're told to go out and work, and that's how you get strong, just like every other mammal on Earth. There's what's called the Wolffian complex, or the Wolffian principle, and it says if you put a demand on the body will respond by getting stronger. So if you want bones to be strong, you have to have strong muscles. So the stronger the muscles are, the stronger the bones are. So to combat osteoporosis, it's do stuff. Not sit on your butt and drink milk and take calcium supplements, but mixing by hand, mashing by hand, chopping by hand, all those little things, walking and biking and doing whatever you can to carry your own stuff, do your own stuff. All those little bitty things create stronger muscles, which then create stronger bones. And by creating those stronger bones, that's how you prevent osteoporosis. Just like every other animal on Earth, that you don't have gorillas sitting around being like, well, I got to get my calcium supplement. Which is the best calcium supplement? Should I take the carbonate that's only 22% absorbable? Or should I take the citrate, which is 66% absorbable? Should I take the gluconate? Or should I do what every other species has done before the dairy industry and just eat a bunch of fruits and vegetables, nuts, seeds, berries, legumes, and greens, and move around a bunch? Well, it's probably the latter thing there, right? Just move more. Do more. Stop using all this technology as much as you can, right? In my kitchen, I only have no electronics. None. A stove. But other than that, everything's done by hand. Everything. So even when I have 4 daughters, I cook for them, do all the stuff, do the dishes. It's all by hand, right? So that's how you make strong bones. But if women consume more and more dairy, then when you have high estrogen, it actually inhibits, it's either factor I or factor F. It's been a long time since I taught that course. But that prevents the downregulation of your immune system after an infection. So you have a little infection, your immune system amps up like a little war, and then after the war goes away, you downregulate. But high amounts of estrogen will prevent that downregulation, and it just keeps amping up and amping up and amping up until you eventually have that T cell dysregulation and molecular mimicry, and then you have full-blown autoimmune because of that. So lupus, Sjogren's, Raynaud's, it's always women. The only one that's 50-50, and statistically it's not. It's like 30 for women, 70% for men, but that's irritable bowel, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis. But I think that's just because men typically are going to do it themselves, so they don't go to the doctor for that. And then there's some kind of heart stuff that's more men than women. But the vast majority of all autoimmune is going to be women because of high estrogenic content that suppresses the immune system's ability to suppress, if that makes sense. So, then when you look for puberty, and one of the hormones that's on here is the red one, and that one there is called 2-hydroxyestrone, and it is actually ends up being the most reactive. And you can see out of all these different colors, like buttermilk, that's how much is the reactive, the most reactive out of all those. So that estrogen ends up fueling cancer. Now the other thing that's in there in huge amounts is something called insulin-like growth factor 1, IGF-1. And normally the way IGF-1 works in the human body is, say I want to grow tissue. I'm going through a growth spurt, right? Which I'm pretty close to, I think, going through a growth spurt again. So I'm going to hit that 5:10. Probably not. So what happens is your pituitary gland, which is right here in your hypothalamus, or sorry, at the end of your hypothalamus, there's like looks like 2 little testicles hanging down, and that's your pituitary. And your pituitary then releases a hormone called growth hormone. And growth hormone then goes and creates insulin-like growth factor 1. And then that stimulates tissue growth. So you grow bones and muscles and tissue and whatever, right? When girls go through puberty, it allows their breast tissue to grow, their hips to grow, uterus to grow, ovaries to grow. But If you consume insulin like growth factor 1, you have bypassed the feedback mechanism. And all of a sudden, you get no inhibition of growth. You're drinking and eating something that says, let's just grow a bunch of tissue really fast. And the whole purpose of breast milk for any species, from human to horses or cows, is to grow a baby as fast as possible outside the uterus in the shortest amount of time. So even for humans, that's what we want to do. We want to grow that baby really fast. And we're probably one of the slowest baby species to grow like that. So human breast milk is designed to take a 7-pound baby to 30 pounds, and it takes 2 years to do that. We're pretty pathetic when it comes to growth. Most species, they drop that, like you see that baby giraffe, they had the little live feed, watching waiting for the mom to deliver the baby. That giraffe popped down, stood up, walks around and eats, right? Human baby plopped down and just would lay there and die. So we're pretty weak as a species when it comes to babies. That's why we never have baby fights. So when you look at that, the human breast milk content is designed to grow babies very slow at the fastest possible time they grow outside the uterus. Now, if you compare that to a cow's breast milk, it's designed to take a 75-pound baby all the way to 1,000 pounds in less than a year, like 10 months. And the way you get something to grow 1,000 pounds in less than a year is by astronomically high amounts of hormones like estradiol and insulin like growth factor 1. So when you consume dairy products, when you consume, and it's the same with goats, it's the same with rat milk, they all grow dramatically faster than humans. So that anytime you eat cheese or you eat yogurt or you drink cow's milk, kefir milk, basically you are now nursing from the cow. What you're literally saying is, oh mama cow, did you have a little baby? That's so cute. Okay, baby, you go eat soy replacement formula. I'm now your baby. Gulp, 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 gulp. So we breastfeed from cows. Okay, so Brianna says, how do you explain girls in the late 1800s and 1900s that have lived on dairy farms, and drank milk? Could it be that they were surrounded by other estrogen? So that's a good question. And and we'll also, if you remember, we'll talk about like the Bible with the land of milk and honey too. But when you see back in the old days, and really about 100 years ago, post World War or pre World War II is kind of where we started seeing most of the problem. But before World War II, there wasn't a reason to drink much milk. So people on farms might drink a little milk, but they get tremendous amounts of fruits and vegetables and greens, which help detoxify estrogens. They also work their butts off, so they end up having less fat, which then complicates and has more estrogen. And so they have this kind of sustainable lifestyle, which is old school, that does allow some of that to go on, but it's also not their main staple. So Americans consume like, I want to say, so it's 2,000 pounds of food. Let me look this. Let me look this up real quick. So the average American eats about 2,000 pounds of food. Let's see, what Americans eat. And of that, there's a huge chunk that's dairy product. Now, it was never like that before. So around World War II, there's a good book called Eating History, and it talks about these food changes. And they said that there wasn't really a dairy industry much. You know, it wasn't like it is today because we didn't have cereal. So what did people use milk in? So occasionally they used a little milk for this or that, but we weren't drinking copious amounts of milk until after World War II. Let's see. See if we put 2,000 in. It might be, oh, here we go. And I'll share this on the feed too. Okay, here we are. So, Americans consume 2,000 pounds, and roughly 600 pounds of that is milk now. Non-cheese products, so milk. Almost 100 pounds of butter. And then 34 pounds of cheese. So this is crazy. Think about this. So that is 600, about, okay, there's actually 2 more hundred. So 600 plus 85 plus 31. So roughly about another, say 700 pounds, and 800, 900. So that's crazy. So out of 2,000 pounds of food, about 1,000 pounds of this is dairy. Let me let you look at this. See if that. So here's milk products, milk beverages, like chocolate milk, and then non-cheese dairy products, then cheese, and then butter. So out of 2,000 pounds of food that Americans are consuming, about 1,000 of those, or half, is dairy products. Now that's a little bit of cray-cray right there. That's amazing. So one of the answers is we've never consumed this much dairy in our entire lives, ever, in history, ever. So there's a price to pay for all that. And one of the things too that sometimes people ask are, what about like nomadic tribes? What about Jesus, right? The Bible says the land of milk and honey. And the reason it's milk and honey were mentioned in that way is because that meant they were prized small amounts of things. So if you had these rare things, then that makes a big difference. So if you say, it's America's the land of wheat, or corn, we have way more than we need. That's not a big whoop to do, But if we were the land of health, that would make a big difference. So the other thing that they did, and it's actually mentioned in this journal too, if you look at this, is you have first trimester, second trimester, third trimester, and postpartum hormone production. Nomadic tribes back in the days of, say, Jesus, they would end up drinking or milking cows in the first or second trimester. And that's just when hormones were just the absolute lowest. They wouldn't nurse or basically make people breastfeed in cows after postpartum in third trimester, because that was for the baby. They didn't have their soy replacement formula for the cows. So what they had to do was give them cow milk to the baby cow, and then we only drink non-essential milk. So again, very rare amounts, and we still didn't have cereal back then. So post-World War II, Dr. Kellogg, Dr. Graham came out with cornflakes and rolled oats, and all of a sudden, women went to the war factory, men went to war. There was a sudden need for instant breakfasts and instant foods, and America accommodated, and we created breakfast cereals, cold cereals. So then it kind of blew up from there, and then by the 60s, it was all artificial colors and cartoon characters and all that kind of stuff, and then it just got profoundly worse from there. And even they said that when they were saying that, sorry, my throat's still irritated. They said that breakfast was a part of a healthy diet. The government was going to put regulations on them if they kept saying that, so they stopped saying it, because breakfast is not a part of a healthy diet at all. So Brianna mentioned something else too, and let me go back down here. Michelle Martinez, she said, isn't dairy very inflammatory? And that's true too. So it can be very inflammatory for a lot of people. And one of the questions that people ask too is, well, what about organic milk or raw milk? It still has the enzymes in there, right? Well, it's kind of like getting organic crack cocaine, right? Oh, well, this crack is made from the organic material. It's very sustainable. It's free range crack, Great. Now you're just getting, toothless and skin rashes and itching everywhere with organic crack. So it doesn't matter. Why is there always a drug reference? Every time there's a drug reference. I don't know. All right. So there is no healthy dairy at all. There's just, and there's a great, I think it's a documentary called The White Lie about New Zealand's type A and type B milk. That was really interesting because you can't say anything bad until you come out with the new product. Then you come out with the new, more expensive milk, then you can kind of crap on the old one that you were saying was the best before, which is great. It's great that we do that. So, puberty. So, Brianna's question. So, the average age for puberty used to be 16. I had to look this up because I was a little loose with my figures once, and somebody called me on it, and so I had to do research, and it's pretty much right. There's a couple things that I just kind of slipped on a little bit. But the average age for puberty used to be 16 years of age. So, or not puberty, menstrual cycles. So when you have a menstrual cycle, that means your body is ready to have a baby. So at 16, maybe. Oh, we'll leave it like this. All right. I put my cups in front of the sensor, so I can't signal the lights on like usual. So at 16, they're probably ready to have a baby. Well, not ready to have a baby, but physiologically, they're ready to have a baby. Especially if you're in Kentucky or Texas or South. All right, just kidding. I'm from Texas, so I can say that. But now the average age for girls starting their period is how old? And I think Brianna mentioned this. But what's the average age for girls starting their menstrual cycle now in America? And it's shocking because I have a daughter that's going to be 16. I have a daughter that's going to be 13. And then I have daughters. My two twins are 9 years old. So I have 9, 9, 12, and 15. And so, the whole time you're just like, okay, keep going, no period, just keep going, right? But the average age for girls starting their menstrual cycle now is 12 years of age. And I think that's what Brianna said, 11 to 13. And so a 12-year-old girl is not physically ready to have a baby, right? Not even if you really live in the really southern, deep Kentucky, like backwoods. They're not ready to have babies. And they're not ready to get married. So, then if you look at the average age for girls starting puberty, it's like 8 years old now. Like I have patients that started their menstrual cycles in 3rd grade. But we now see girls changing around 8 years old. And I'll tell you, this is crazy because when my middle girl was 8 years old, I remember dropping her off at the school for the first day, and I was like, was that your teacher? Like, that person looks too old to be a student. They're like, no, she's in my class. I'm like, what? Like, it was weird because when I was a kid, everybody looked like kids. And at that school, you can't tell how old anybody is because of all the estrogenic change in those girls. It's messed up. So, that's messed up by itself. So, puberty is a big, big problem. So, we have cancer, we have autoimmune, and we have puberty problems. So that's all girl stuff. What about the dudes? Should dudes drink milk? Eat lots of cheese? You know why people love cheese? Same with bread. It has morphine in there. Casomorphin is 20 times more addicting than morphine as a street drug. Isn't that crazy? It's drugs. So, that's why we put cheese on everything, especially for kids, because we end up just drugging everybody, and life sucks. I'll eat to happiness, right? And you lower your dopamine, eventually you can't eat to even be happy anymore, and then life sucks, and then you come see me. And I say, stop doing that. Stop doing it. So, that's why that's why people eat cheese. So, in fact, moms can breastfeed a baby while they're getting circumcised, like cutting the skin off their hoo-ha, and they don't even cry because of all the morphine that's in the breast milk. The other way that they do is they give them a syringe of sugar. Now, they take the needle off if they're smart, but they just take a little syringe and they feed the baby glucose. Well, glucose is sugar, and sugar is more addicting than crack cocaine. So either way, it's that drug effect. So that's right. That's right. Or drug references. So I watched too much Breaking Bad. What can I say? So then we come with guys. Most guys, probably most people, think that there's two forms of the human body. There's male form and there's female form. And there's not. There's only female form of the body. So all guys start out as girls. Isn't that crazy? We should be more sensitive, but we're not. Well, some of us are. You know what this shirt's made out of? Boyfriend material. That's yo girl. All right. So boys come from girls physically and structurally. So the ovaries descend and become testicles if they have a Y chromosome. The uterus shrivels down and becomes a prostate if they have a Y chromosome. And then breast tissue doesn't change at all, which Michelle's right there is talking about, that they get man boobs. So what is the number one elective surgery in the United States for men now? We did it. We did it. And it's so weird because Seinfeld has like all these episodes. Seinfeld has this episode where George's fantasy is to sit and eat a block of cheese in an easy chair all summer. And I thought, well, that's just weird. Why would you eat a whole block of cheese? I mean, everybody likes cheese, but why would you eat a whole block of cheese? Well, because it's drugs. He was just going to sit there and drug himself all summer, right? So that's why. And then they also had another episode on there about the man's ear or the bro. No, the bra? Bro. The bro? No. The bro's ear. The man's ear or the bro's ear? I think that, correct me if I'm wrong here, but that episode where I think it's Frank and Kramer are coming out with this new bra for men. Because the number one elective surgery in the United States for men is male breast reduction surgery. Man's ear. That's right, man's ear. So, men are growing breasts because they have breasts. They can all nurse a baby. We're just too lazy. But now men are lactating at an alarming rate. And Harvard came out and said that 1 out of every 1,000 breast cancers in the United States are now men. And that men need to get, wait for it, mammograms or manograms. So men are supposed to get mammograms now. Again, why is dairy the devil? Because you're growing man boobs. Keep eating that cheese. See what happens. And you know what's funny is I was going to a meeting, software meeting. I used to make this medical software, and we had a meeting out there in Venice Beach, California. And when I was on the boardwalk, I mean, there's just every type of person ever created on that boardwalk in Venice Beach. And there was this guy walking. He's a black guy. He had just his jeans on, and he had tattoos on his neck and over his chest, and he had a chain swinging side to side. He looked cool as hell. He looked straight out of a video, right? And so, although he looked pretty rough and tough, his breast tissue was poofing out like a little 13-year-old girl. And so all I wanted to do was walk up to him and say, man, you can't be gangster on the dairy, yo! But I thought I might get my ass kicked, so I didn't. Thought just maybe it might work. But here this guy is, trying to look gangster as hell, but he has breasts like a 13-year-old girl. Well, nowadays probably like an 8-year-old girl. But that's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Yeah, probably like a 9-year-old girl, not a 13-year-old now. Everything's just shifting down. And DDT was so estrogenic that you had girls with like A cups that were babies, that were like toddlers. Like, it was so estrogenic. It also messed up the bill of the eagle and almost eradicated them. So, well, good, Michelle. I'm glad you like it. So, what age should you stop? Should kids stop drinking milk? At any age. So, kids do not need milk. They need breast milk, and then they need no milk, just like every other species on Earth. Every other species just eats food and moves around. And that's all kids have to do. So there's no age we need dairy. In fact, if you feed a baby too young dairy, you'll kill them. They will die from that. Oh, great. Now, like, everything's dimming down. Now it looks like when me and Sky had our talk. There we go. We had that little romantic kind of dark interlude kind of talk going. So, yeah, the other thing, though, with that, because, again, you think about, okay, before 1960, that's when we saw the huge spike of epidemic of breast cancer for women from pesticides and herbicides, and then all the estrogenic products that we use those in, and then now we see men with the same thing, because men, bodies aren't any different. If you look at the other huge problem that men have, it's 1 out of every 2 men by 40 now has a prostate so large they can barely pee or ejaculate. And we call that benign prostatic hypertrophy, or BPH. Yeah. And the name kind of alludes to, man, your prostate's growing really big. We don't know why, right? We're only doctors. We don't know why this is going on here. Which I love in the study where it says, we've always known that dairy is directly tied to cancer, heart disease, and diabetes, but we didn't understand the mechanism until now. Now, does everybody else know? No, because it takes years for research to disseminate, and you got all these people trying to make money, and it's a whole mess. It's not going to get distilled down to your practitioner. They don't even take nutritional courses. So, most people aren't going to hear this conversation at all, especially from their doctor. But if you go to a natural medicine doctor, like me, and you say, what can I do for my prostate? Well, I might prescribe something called saw palmetto. If you go to your MD, he'll prescribe you finasteride. But either one of those, because finasteride is based off of saw palmetto, there are 5 alpha reductase inhibitors which actually do one thing. They block estradiol. So what they're saying is, man, we don't know what's causing your prostate to grow really big, but let's block that estrogen just in case. So, and it's not a very good solution. Prostates are one of the slowest. Like, I get excited when somebody comes with Crohn's or ulcerative colitis or eczema, psoriasis, or migraines. I get excited about those because those are usually pretty easy cases. But someone comes in with a prostate, it's just like, they're going to have to make a lot of estrogenic changes in their life, and men don't change very well. Then they're going to have to stop eating dairy and drinking dairy, which men don't do a very good job of making changes in their lifestyle. So it's usually, can I just take some saw palmetto in a really high amount and make that better? Or I found another article about beta-cisterol, and I found another article about pacogenol, and I found another, like, they just want to take stuff. But you can't be causing this much damage and trying to undo it like this, or even like this. It's going to be very slow going. So, it's a little bit of a mess. Women, it's a lot easier because they care. They want to change. 85% of healthcare is driven by women because they care about stuff. And the 15% that's men are usually the women making appointments for their husbands. But once things don't work anymore, then they get a little serious about trying to figure out what's going on. So what they're doing is blocking estrogen, and that's because estradiol is trying to take that walnut-sized prostate and grow it back into a pear-sized uterus, because we are literally converting men back into women, their original form. So that's why more guys are watching Lifetime movies than ever. No, that's probably not true. But it's pretty messed up. And what's interesting is they have actually completed this cycle in nature. So in the U.S. Geological Service in Colorado has found genetically male-born frogs that have converted back to female form and can lay eggs. They completed the cycle, and it's the amount of estrogen that's being leached in from all the aerial pesticides, herbicides that then leach into the water system, and then the frogs just sit there and bathe in that estrogen, and it converts them back to females, and they can lay eggs. So, if we keep doing this, I think we'll be able to really convert men completely back into women, and we'll be successful. Every kid will have autism, every person will have cancer, everybody will be type 2 diabetic, and we'll convert men back to women, and then America can finally say, we did it, we accomplished what we set out to, hallelujah, America's number one in everything that's horrible. So, alright, so Brianna has another question. If fibrous breast tissue is stimulated from too much estrogen, will fibrous tissue be reversed by reducing estrogen? So that's a good question. And that becomes a little bit of yes and no. I mean, we have to be really aggressive with this. Because once you grow tissue, it's kind of like growing, say, double D breasts and then trying to revert them back to an A cup. It's going to be pretty difficult. I mean, that's one of the things that makes prostate so hard. Endometriosis tends to be a little bit easier because once that tissue is grown, then when they go through the cycle, the estrogen spike kind of grows it and tightens it, and it pulls on organs and tissues, and it causes more pain. But if you can stop that growth, a lot of times like endometriosis and polycystic ovarian, you'll see in the improvement of symptoms with all those things. Reversing it completely takes a little bit of time though. So, and again, it's not really a great expectation when it comes to that. You won't have the fibrocystic breast maybe. You won't have the breast tenderness during cycles. You may not have the vulvodynia, but, you know, it basically, reducing all those things will make a hell of a lot of difference in your life. But trying to grow those things smaller is going to be a process of time. So not a very good answer, but an answer. Oh, Brianna wants men in America. Come on, if men convert back to women, you guys can wear the same dresses. You can buy the same clothes. It'll be great. You guys can all talk about how your breasts get tenderness near the end of the month. Oh man, when I was working out this weekend, you know, powerlifting, oh, my breasts are getting sore because I've been really amping up on that cheese. So that's why we say dairy's the devil. So on the other hand, what can we do about it? People like their dairy, they like their stuff. What are some solutions that you guys do? And Christy has a good question. So what about goat's milk? Goats are the same thing as cows. The same thing as rats, horses, rhinos, hippos. Every species grows dramatically faster than humans, so it's the same problem. Now, it might be half the problem, but it's still a big problem. And all I can think about when I think of goat's milk is hairy milk for some reason. I don't know. Because the goats are all, I guess cows are, but they're all kind of rough, furry. I don't know. So Brianna uses coconut milk. Coconut milk's almond, or coconut milk. Coconut milk is almond. Coconut milk is awesome, right? It took me a while to get used to because I grew up with copper tone, you know, as a kid, and so everybody that you went swimming with smelled like coconut, and so then drinking it, it felt like I was drinking suntan lotion from the old days. So yeah, Kim, nut milks. That's probably the easiest solution. And nut milks are super easy to make. You just grind up like a handful of nuts in a quart of water or something, puree it, put it in a cheesecloth. People hang it in their dishwasher and then let a little glass container, let it drip into there. And then you can make a nut butter out of the stuff that's left, and then you have your nut milk. Or you can buy it. Just buy the ones that have the least amount of ingredients. Like an 8th Continent nut milk is gross. It has like all these gross things in there that don't need to be in there. But like a So Delicious or a Silk or something, that's better. Ship by, who's Ship? Chip? Yeah, so like Carrie's saying, is the almond milk that she got has sunflower. There was, I think it's almond milk that I usually buy, and it has, no, cashew milk. I think cashew milk has almonds in it too. Now, Brianna says Cheo cheese. Now, we made vegan burgers, and she brought over that Cheo cheese, And I was just like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't like fake cheese. And so we tried it. It was great. It tastes like provolone. It was amazing. So, yeah, so Carrie's shop. Yeah. So, making your own kind of eliminates problems, and we actually had a person at our church that had a machine, like a little juicer machine that you put like stuff in there and then it'll make some nut milk but they made black rice milk, which was awesome. And then they made forbidden rice milk, which is purple milk. So that's kind of cool. So they made black milk and purple milk, but it just tastes like rice milk. And if you get rice milk, that's fine. Just get whole grain brown rice milk, not white rice milk, because that's just sugar. What about yogurt? Now, yogurt substitutes. There's that Siggis commercial that keeps coming up during my Hulu. And he's like, well, when I came from Iceland, I thought there was too much sugar in the yogurt, so I made my own, and then I made some more. So it's basically he's making yogurt with less sugar. What the hell does less sugar mean? So today when I was at the store, me and Zoe were looking through stuff, and she had pointed out the coconut milk that she loves, but she says it's full of sugar. So I looked on there, and it's 20 grams of sugar for that little container. 20 grams. 4 grams is a teaspoon. So that's 5 teaspoons of sugar in there. And it only takes 1 teaspoon to suppress your immune system for 30 minutes. So basically, that's 2.5 hours of suppressed immune system to lead to food sensitivities and that kind of problems. Cheddar cheese is expensive. It is. It was like $4 or $5. It's like $1 a slice. So I've learned that I just don't use cheese. I use avocado instead of cheese. It has the same creaminess, the fat content. So that kind of gives you the same satiation. So putting avocado and stuff and putting guacamole and stuff, that tends to work. Now, Christy, you use agave? Oh, they use agave. Who uses agave? Agave, theoretically, should be a good sugar. But agave is often processed the same as high fructose corn syrup and ends up causing fatty liver disease. So agave in probably alcohol, which you make gin, or I think it's gin you make from that. That's good. Oh, the Icelandic one, the Siggis. So agave should be better, but honey would be optimal. Honey and maple syrup would be perfect. And see, that's the thing is, milk is sour for sour cream and yogurt, but we don't like sour things, so we sweeten them up, and that becomes the problem. Is real yogurt should be sour, not sweet. Sour and bitter are always medicine, and it should be fermented, so full of good bacteria too, which would be nice. So instead of like kefir, do kombucha, or do chia mama, or do kavita that doesn't have any tea in there if you have a sensitivity to tea. So that's another way to get fermented foods. Instead of butter, just use olive oil. Or there is Barlean's butter that uses essential oils to make it taste like butter, and that's fabulous. I use Earth Balance, and I love Earth Balance. It tastes just like butter. Like, who would know the difference? There also is, and these aren't as great, but there is sour cream and cream cheese that's made from soy, organic soy. So that's always good. And Brianna says there's a non-dairy kefir. So that took a while for them to come out. Used to, it was very hard. We didn't have any options for these things. But now we do. And then ice cream, there's all the nut ice creams too. Yeah, see, Michelle? Earth Balance is the bomb. I love Earth Balance. But otherwise, you can just use olive oil for whatever it says. However much butter, just use olive oil in there. And then there is coconut ice cream, and there's almond ice cream. They're like, usually like $5 for a pint, which is great because you never overeat nut ice creams because they cost too much. So, and Ben and Jerry's, what is it? No, it has the English walnuts. Oh, nutty something. What the hell is that one called? Chunky Monkey. Their Chunky Monkey one, the non-dairy one, is like $7. So I'm like, not eating that because I'm too cheap. So there's non-dairy yogurt. Just have to watch out for the sugar. There's non-dairy milk, nut milks, and rice milks. Non-dairy ice creams, nut ice creams and brown rice ice cream. And then, of course, butters. So, all right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please share this video with your friends. Make sure that you like the video. Really appreciate you guys watching. And next week, we were hoping to have the genetics in, so we took a little detour. But next weekend, we're going to talk about kind of thought, mental process, nocebo, placebo effect, and rewiring the brain. So we're going to talk about neuroplasticity, and we're going to have a special guest that you guys might remember or might know, Connie Paraska. So she's super awesome. She does all this work with like yoga and meditation and these kind of mindfulness groups, and she coordinates the stuff at the domes for the professional night mindfulness, I guess, on Thursdays. So she'll be great on here. It'll be interesting to have her as a guest, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week. And you can watch all these like 85 videos offline too if you want. Otherwise, please post all your questions. I'll go through and answer those too over the next week. Okay? Thank you guys for attending. All right. Bye-bye.